Hey, Cap.
Morning, John.
So, you kind of needed the link to be a part of this thing.
You know
And
what? I wasn't sure because I thought maybe I could just use previous links. Wasn't sure if they were all the same or not, but now I know they're not.
yeah. And so I send you the link like during the show, and I'm like, oh, crap. He kind of needs to know how to get into the show. But that's the beauty of me and technology. We're like this, brother.
You've proven it time and time again.
Yes. And so once again, you kind of need to tell a guest how to come into a show when you're doing a live show. But anyway, Cap, thanks for hanging out and pinch hitting for Greg. I know that Greg has some things that he's got some breakfasts and some meals that he has with some very important people, some VIPs. But thanks for hanging out this morning. First thing I want to start with yesterday. Very, very important day, National Youth Confidence Day. And I saw the message that you and Greg posted for Beyond Goals. Very, very cool stuff. And you guys right there out in the forefront to make sure that your feelings and your messages out there for National Youth Confidence Day. Very, very cool stuff yesterday.
Yeah, I became aware of that midday. The woman that's helping us out with social media, she said, gosh, today's National Confidence Day. We got to put something out there. I said, totally. It was weird because earlier that day I was reading something and it was talking about confidence and how it's something that can be trained and learned and worked on always. And I thought like we should put that out there because I think that sometimes there's this misconception that like you're either a confident person or you're not. And it's something that absolutely can be learned and trained on. And even those that are more often confident than not definitely lose it sometimes. And, it's something that can wane and come and go. And, it's obviously so valuable in whatever you do in life, not just on the athletic field.
As a professional, when was the first time you lost your confidence? When did you have to have this battle as a professional? When do you remember that?
I mean, shoot, there's so many small instances of losing a little bit of confidence, but for me, I was always really good about not losing it completely, not letting it go like too far down the rabbit hole. I remember my first preseason as a pro with the Revolution. The Carlos Yamosa was on the team, and he was a legend in U.S. soccer in MLS, and he was going to be the starting center back in a 3-back system for our team, and he retired in preseason. He was older, struggled through preseason, and retired early in preseason. And I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. This is my shot. I'm next on the chopping block here. Like this is it. And then the next like 3 weeks. Back then, preseason was really long, and they brought in trialist after trialist after trialist, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like they really don't trust me, like they really don't want me to play center back here for them. Thankfully, then none of the trialists were better than me. So they were kind of, I don't know, stuck with me or chose me, one of the two.
Well, and I know that sometimes. You say that in a very self-deprecating way. And I think that's sometimes a lot of us, that's our default, to be self-deprecating about our own abilities. So we can put everyone else around us at ease and make us feel at ease as well. And I think that it is self-deprecation, I guess, as we're talking this through, is it kind of that counterbalance to confidence to make sure that we don't get too confident about ourselves and get into cockiness, you think?
Yeah, I think it's always nice to have that. And I think that the more confident you are, the more likely you are to self-deprecate and know that like you're not really bringing yourself down. You're just trying to more be humble or, you don't care about what other people think or how it makes you come across because you're confident in who you are and what you do. So you have no problem, voicing that self-deprecation, I guess.
Yeah, but we all have ego, though. I would venture to say that even if we are self-deprecating and we have that kind of presentation, I think that we all have a certain amount of ego. But once again, it's the trappings of ego to where you don't have entirely too much. of an ego and are perceived as someone who is just wrapped up in themselves. I think that there's once again that balance that we talk about here when it comes to how to use it and how it applies to our own egos, I would think.
Totally. And yeah, you have to have a little bit of ego in order to have confidence. I think they go hand in hand a little bit, right? You want to have that ability to think like, okay, I'm the best, or you know what, I'm going to use this as motivation. I'm going to show him, I'm going to show her, I'm going to show this person, like, and that, you know, leads into confidence in yourself and your abilities and who you are. You know, and so, yeah, it is definitely a balance and they go hand in hand. And, you know, I think that, you know, we talk about having an ego as a negative thing sometimes. And, you know, I think that all the best athletes have an ego, and, you know, they walk that fine line where sometimes that ego comes out a little bit, but, you know, you need it in order to be one of the best in whatever you do, right? You have to have that self-confidence of like, I'm the best, I want to be the best. And even if, like, there were times where I would say to myself out on the field, like, I want to be the best player on the field today, right? And you know, I'm out there with Miguel and Joseph and guys on the other team. I know I'm not the best player, right? But in my mind, I say I'm going to be the best player on the field today. You know, and that's just that confidence and that ego kind of going hand in hand.
Well, and I mean, there's one moment in particular that sticks out, I know, in a lot of Atlanta United fans' minds about confidence and inserting yourself into a play during MLS Cup, where you close down, you create a turnover, and it creates a goal. And it's I think that kind of confidence to sit there and say, okay, I can really do something incredibly positive in that moment. I think that plays into it. And that's just a moment for me, and I think a moment for a lot of folks, where the confidence of Michael Parkhurst showed itself, and it created an opportunity for Atlanta United to get closer to an MLS Cup win.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that is it's a lead up to that as well, right? I mean, I had played in 4 MLS Cups prior to that cup, and I remember thinking like, you know, I don't think I played poorly in any of those 4 MLS Cups, yet I was on the losing end of all 4 of them. And, you know, I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, it's one thing to not play poorly, but I didn't really like do anything to help the team win either. I didn't make a difference, like, I guess offensively or something like that. So maybe I had that in the back of my head, maybe that helped lead to that. So, you know, there was like kind of visualizing sort of, or thinking ahead of time, but, you know, also having the confidence to think, you know, go out there and do it.
You say that confidence can be trained or learned, and not everyone is going to be 100% confident 100% of the time. With your mentees, is it confidence is already there, or are you having to help learn or train about confidence? How confident, I guess, are your mentees today as a lot, do you think?
Yeah, it's across the board. There's definitely some mentees that come to us, and that is the main focus, where we're going to work on confidence because, you know, for one reason or another, they are lacking in that area, or they're struggling with some confidence. And there's others that are feeling pretty confident most of the time, and then, you know, every now and then in games or between games, they'll lose a little bit of confidence. And there's other kids that are quite confident that need to work on some other aspects of things. You know, but, you know, we talk about, you can learn confidence, but it's not like there's a trick to saying, okay, I'm down in confidence today, let me do this one thing today and I'll feel better tomorrow and I'll be good. Right? It's more of a process, and there's things that we work on that'll help before you lose the confidence, you know, once it's regained. And there's tips to help you regain it. So it's a long thing where it's not like, you know, the switch is flipped and now I'm confident and I'm going to be this way, right? We talk like there's always adversity. There's always things that are going to come up that are going to test it. And we talked about the mental curve, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, right? But that's one of the pieces of balancing that confidence is what I talked about even earlier today was, you know, of course I went through areas and bouts of confidence, right? But I never lost it completely. It went down a little bit.
Gonzalo Higuain retired after the loss for Inter Miami against NYC, and I thought it was an eye-opening post-match presser with him where he mentioned all of the abuse that he got on social media and how tough it was for him to adjust to a role with Inter Miami that he ended up being incredibly successful in to get them into the playoffs. And he said that he wanted to be a mental health coach in his next round of helping out the sport. What did you think about what he said, what he went through, and what he wants to do now? I thought it was kind of eye-opening on a bunch of different fronts.
Yeah, I think it was great because people underestimate the toll that, playing at such a high level for such a long time can take on you, right? Gonzalo had an amazing career. This guy scored so many goals at Real Madrid, like the highest level in the world, right? For the Argentinian national team, like almost won a World Cup, almost won big tournaments, and like so successful. And yet he's out there admitting like he dealt with a lot of stuff mentally off the field and it affected him. And so I think that's powerful. And I think that it's great that he wants to go out there and share his message and help the younger generation deal with some of the things that he obviously went through. There's definitely a benefit to sports psychologists and the doctors and the knowledge that they have. But there's also a tremendous benefit to someone that's been through it personally and has the experience and knowledge of kind of what the toll it is and how to combat it.
Because there were, going back to the sports psychology element of it too, as a part of this discussion, there was a very famous sports psychologist who would help out athletes, and this is probably 20 years ago. And what he would do is he would give the athletes that would come and talk to him, he would give them trigger words. One of the athletes was a professional kicker in the National Football League who was a very, very good golfer. And this sports psychologist, Jack Llewellyn, I don't know if you know the name from down here in the Southeast, but what Dr. Jack would do is he would give trigger words to these athletes. And it was Al Del Greco, who was kicking for the Oilers at the time. And what Llewellyn would do to Del Greco is he would have him think of the word birdie because of how successful a golfer he was. All right, so every time you're out there to line up a kick, whether it's an extra point or a field goal attempt, think birdie because that's what you did in golf. That's what you want to do to succeed in golf. So think of that as you're doing those kinds of things for your team that way. And that's one way of doing it from that external part that we're talking about. But the idea of having a Gonzalo Higuain or having you and Greg done it, who have actually done that, and then it's not Gonzalo Higuain that is calling you, I believe, having that athletic presence that's right there. Yeah, it's cool to have the outsider talk, but I think it's just as impactful to have someone who's been there, been through it, and can lay it all out for you to give you that shared experience, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It gives us just a little bit more credibility that kids can understand that we went through it and understand what it takes to have success and to get to climb that ladder and to be there and to deal with it. And, for sure, it's just, there's some things that kids these days deal with that we didn't have to as far as social media at such a young age. But for the most part, we understand the ins and outs of the game and the toll that the mental grind that is a season or multiple seasons or injuries or confidence and backlash and bad performances and all these things. So yeah, I think it's awesome that he wants to get in that realm. It's amazing that someone from his stature dealt with so many things yet still played at such a high level. And I know that at the end of the career it's difficult to go to Miami and not be a starter or a star. Yeah. And, I think that it's a testament to him that, of course he wasn't happy about it in the beginning. And, you see it with Cristiano Ronaldo right now. But Higuain came around eventually, embraced it and said, you know what, if this is the end of the career, like, I'd rather go out scoring goals and having a positive memory than, crying on the bench and being, one of the bigger busts in MLS history.
All right. So since you've been reading my notes, Cristiano Ronaldo was one of the things that I wanted to get into you with this morning. It's disappointing on a lot of different fronts because I think that it's obviously it's disrespectful to your manager. It's disrespectful to your teammates, where you don't want to show the camaraderie, the teamship, to create a word, to that oneness that it's supposed to be there. When you see someone, regardless of who it is, but since it is Cristiano Ronaldo that we're talking about here in this example, basically just trudge off the field, turn down the idea of, hey, I need you to go in as a late sub. Well, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. I've scored 700 goals, and I'm just going to, wear my penny and my Art Deco warm-up suit, and I'm going to head down the tunnel. And at Old Trafford, it is not just, turn a corner and go. Literally, man, it is a 50 to 60-yard walk, and you're down the tunnel. It takes a little while. When you saw that, and when you saw that behavior, what were your initial reactions?
Similar to everybody else, right? On one hand, you think, man, this could be the end of one of the greatest players to ever play. And it's sad that it's ending like this. And on the other hand, you're like, man, what a crybaby, right? Like, having that self, and this is where the ego and the confidence and all this comes into play, right? Because his ego is now too big for the team. It's too big for success on the team, and good for the manager for actually holding him accountable and dropping him from the team this weekend, because it is important for the culture. And there's a lot of younger, talented players on this Manchester United team, and who may go on to have very, very good careers. And hopefully the manager's telling them, like, hey, even if you do have a great career like Ronaldo did, like, this is unacceptable within the team. And, it's a shame, because he's such a role model for so many kids out there, not even guys on his own team that he's a role model for. But, little kids that were in the stands at Old Trafford that day, or kids watching all over the globe, right? And now think like, oh, because I'm the best player, or because I've done this or that, like, I can do that. I can do whatever I want, basically. And life is not like that, as we know. And, your past successes, get you a long way, and it gets you a lot of respect. But, at the same time, like we talk about with all our mentees, right? It's about being a good person and doing things right way on and off the field. And he failed in that moment. And hopefully, like Higuain, he can rebound from this and accept his role within this team for the next few months until the transfer window is open. And I'm sure he's leaving.
Yeah.
But there's a whole generation of people that are going to remember Ronaldo as with this time at Manchester United, and not his previous time at Manchester United. And God, it'll be a shame if this is the lasting memory, and not like him going out there and maybe being a super sub and scoring some goals for them.
Yeah, and that was one of the elements in this. It's like, understand your place. And once we get into ego and confidence, I know that it's easier for me to say something like this. Understand your role, understand your place, be that good example, be there for others, instead of trying to sit there and say, well, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo, and I am pluperfect as an individual, and I should start and I should be these things, instead of being a starting striker in an FA Cup tie or whatever. And yeah, it's got to be hard for an individual to have that realization. And I think that, as you mentioned it, I think with Higuain and with Cristiano Ronaldo, we have both sides of this equation here of how you can handle yourself in a moment of, I don't want to say personal adversity, but in a moment where your character can be examined and held accountable for you. And it's an interesting dichotomy here, where you have somebody like Higuain who got it, and somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo who ain't getting it. And it's ending ugly, and ending uglier than ugly, for one of the biggest global clubs out there.
For sure. And I don't want to sit here and say it's easy, because it's absolutely not, right? I was at nowhere near the level of Cristiano Ronaldo, but my last year as a professional, like, I was not starting a lot of the games, right? I was no longer a starter under Frank, and Miles had taken my job, and, rightfully so, probably. But, while I'm in it, I'm still thinking like, no, I belong somewhere on the field. Like, I can help this team, and I want to play and all this. Right. So it's a tough balance between, your ego saying, I can help this team win. I want to win. I'm still good. versus like, okay, this is the coach's decision. Like, I'm going to accept the role that I'm in, because you never know what happens. Look, then I end up starting towards the end of the season with, unfortunate injuries, and, the team needs me. And, so you never know. But it's also why I didn't want to continue playing, right? I knew that it's very, very difficult when you're a starter and you're one of the better players and all this thing for a very long time. And now all of a sudden you become a bench player, and that role is so much different. And I didn't want to play that role. Of course, I probably could have played another few seasons, right? If I take a lesser salary, play a couple games, similar like what Drew Moore did for the last couple of years, right? But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go out, with people remembering me way up here, and not, the last few years being not as high. So, that's how I approached it. But, Ronaldo, I think, is similar to Tom Brady. He's going to play as long as he can, and probably still at a high level. It's just not at the highest level.
And it might end up being in some developing nation like a Saudi Arabia, where you're going and you're going to be paid an incredible amount of money, and you will have those flashes, and we will all sit there and understand it's like, yes, you're Cristiano Ronaldo, but you've gone to take a paycheck in a developing soccer nation instead of being with one of the top 5 leagues, one of the top 5 clubs. And it's ending badly on a lot of different fronts. And I don't think that when you have an athlete of that stature, I think sometimes they may get lost mentally in the idea of who they affect with their decisions. And I'm not just talking teammates. You mentioned the younger players, the fans, and all those kinds of things. That last image might be him charging down the tunnel in a huff, as opposed to being there, being that teammate, helping the younger players understand their role. And as you said, injuries might happen. I know that no Manchester United fan wants to sit there and have an injury to Bruno Fernandes, but if something does happen, then if you've exhibited that idea of, I can be a good team player and be there for you in certain roles, I can help you out. And I know that there's going to be some front office that's going to look all of this stuff, and they're not going to look at it and go, we want Cristiano Ronaldo, we'll take the baggage. And I don't know if that's a good thing long-term because of everything that what we've been seeing.
It'll be good for off the field because it'll sell, and tickets and merchandise and everything. But I wouldn't want to be his teammate, honestly. Similar to Higuain when he came, right? When I watch Higuain play, when he first came to MLS, he had the worst body language of any player I think I've ever seen on the field. Like, every single thing was arms up in the air and walking and, cussing out teammates and all this stuff. And I thought, oh my God. He basically ran that Mexican player out off the team, right? Pizarro, a very, very good player. And he killed Pizarro's confidence, crushed him. And it was just like, oh my God, I would hate to play with this guy. And like I said, thankfully, it seemed like he changed. But, I would imagine that's how Ronaldo would be if he came to MLS. And I'm not saying it would. I'm hoping he doesn't, because it'll be a show, and, it'll bring more eyeballs and all this stuff. But yeah, it will become with its fair share of baggage. And what's crazy is he's hurting his own reputation and image of himself. And I think that's why he wants to play so bad, is for people to, recognize him as the best, and not Messi. Where, I think that if he came in as a sub for 10, 15 minutes and he still played well, we would not diminish anything that he's done over the course of his career at all, right? Everyone's got to, forget if Messi Ronaldo comparison or what you think of him. His statistics and what he's done for a career is one of the best, one of the top 3 best ever to do it. And it's like, no one can say anything about that, except now it's like, oh man, Ronaldo, what a crybaby, versus like, oh wow, he's doing his part, and wow, what a career he's had.
It almost feels like it's beneath him at this point. That's the vibe that we get, that it's like, well, if I'm not starting, all the rest of this stuff is beneath me. I will just go someplace where I will start, and I will be CR7.
Yeah.
What did you think about what happened last night before we go? Philadelphia was Philadelphia. They did their thing, and they turned another meat grinder of a game into a 1-0 win. And then El Tráfico was El Tráfico. We were all up late watching that one. and it showed that both LA and Galaxy and LAFC have some work to do at the back in a 3-2 thriller.
Yeah, I think that both games were exciting to me. I found myself rooting. I really like both of those teams in the East. I think because I like the coaches and, they've had good seasons and some of the players, I found myself rooting for Cincinnati. And they could have had a couple goals, right? Andre Blake is very, very good.
Yeah. He's not bad.
Yeah. I think that team still misses Bedoya on the field. He brings something different, but they're good and they're tough to beat at home. I think one thing between both of the games that frustrates me a little bit is you expect it to be physical in the playoffs. Like, hey, it's physical, right? It's going to be more physical. So get on with it when it is physical. Like, stop rolling around on the ground, stop diving, stop all this theatrical stuff, right? It makes it a little tougher to watch. Like, sometimes I'm like, just get up.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with the headbutt last night with Puig. Like, yes, one really, really not smart.
No.
Should have been a red card probably. But Murillo, get up. There's very, very little contact, right? Let's get on with the game. It's so frustrating. Like, goodness me. Like, all these tackles, you're like, guys, you want it to be physical? You want the referee to let you play? Then get up. Oh, my goodness. But yes, a very exciting game. Exciting second half there in LA last night. And I'm glad the number one seeds go on. They both had really good seasons.
You're not a fan of Team Chaos?
Yeah, Team Chaos is fun, but I like to see the good teams move on, and not to say the other teams weren't good, but hey, they had better seasons than number one seed. So moving on, and both those atmospheres are incredible. So another game in front of those two stadiums, it will be fun to watch.
Yep, tonight and this weekend it's Montreal and NYC and Copa Tejas to determine who goes and plays these two. All right, what's going on with Beyond Goals?
Well, Greg's down there having breakfast with the what is it? I just forgot the. Oh man.
With Michael.
Unified team.
Unified, thank you.
Unified team. So he's doing that this morning. We're getting ready for some big meetings next week on the nonprofit side. So things are cruising along.
Cool. At MF Parkhurst at BG Mentoring, as always. Cap, it's great to have you when I send you the information when you can be on the show in a timely fashion. And it's always great to catch up with you on Fridays. Thanks again for another round of the free kick.
Likewise, John. Always good.